This year's NASCAR silly season is finally starting to take shape. We've got several rides confirmed now. We've got several more rumors that are continuing to be more and more reliable. So let's do this again. How's it going, everyone? My name is Eric and welcome to Out of the Groove. I have three main things that I want to talk about in today's episode, and they all kind of link together, some more than others, but I think this is going to be a pretty cohesive, pretty themed show today, talking almost exclusively about silly season. Now, if you remember a few weeks ago, I made a video where I looked at really all the biggest, highest profile rides that were rumored to be open at the end of this season, and I gave you guys my predictions as to what drivers would likely be in those spots going into 2019. Since then, we've had several announcements come out which have confirmed many of these rides that I've talked about. We've also had a few new rumors pop up that seem very reliable, very truthful, so that's what I want to talk about here today. So I want to start by looking at my predictions from a few weeks ago. These are the 8 rides on the Cup Series side that people were talking about the most, the rides that were going to be open at the end of this year. And again, these here are my predictions. These are not, the actual reports yet. Some of the earliest reports all but confirmed Kurt Busch to the 1 car, Martin Truex Jr. to the 19, but those have still not been confirmed. The teams or the drivers themselves have not yet announced those, so for the time being, those have still been, they're still just rumors. One of the first big dominoes to fall, however, was Ryan Newman was announced to the 6 car, so I got that one right. Newman announced he was leaving RCR, then a week later, I made a whole video about this, announced with Jack Roush and everybody that he was going to Roush Fenway Racing to take over that 6 car. Matt Kenseth and Trevor Bayne will not be racing for that team next year. So that was really the first big domino to fall. In the last week or so, I haven't really talked about some of these other ones on this show, but we've had a few more of these rides confirmed. Let's go ahead and morph this list from my predictions to what's actually been confirmed. So you see here, 4 cars have already been confirmed to have new drivers for 2019. If we flip between the two so far, you can see I've gotten 2 right already, a pretty good batting average. I predicted Ryan Newman would go to 6, that was then confirmed about a week later. I also predicted Ryan Preece to the 47. Now when I made that video a few weeks ago and first mentioned Ryan Preece to the 47, a lot of you guys were like, what are you talking about? Why is AJ Allmendinger's not going anywhere? What? I'd heard months ago from a couple sources, and I'd read other reports since then that really sounded legit that Ryan Preece was going to go to the 47, and yep, sure enough, that was confirmed just a couple weeks ago. So I got both of those right, but unfortunately I do not have a perfect score. We've had some other kind of, I don't want to say unexpected, but other announcements. Another announcement that was made a couple weeks ago is that Daniel Hemric will be driving the 31 car, or the 8. Richard Childress said he might switch the numbers, but he's taking over the car Ryan Newman has driven these last few years. He's being promoted from the Xfinity Series to the Cup Series, and this is something that, isn't too shocking. In my predictions video, I thought that Matt DiBenedetto might get this ride. I thought, I didn't think Richard Childress Racing would want to go into a full-on rebuild. They already have Austin Dillon driving the 3 car, which he's good, but he's still a relatively young and experienced driver. I know Matt DiBenedetto's still a relatively young, unproven driver, but he's been in the Cup Series a little while now. He has more experience than Daniel Hemric does, even though they're about the same age. I said at the time Daniel Hemric, there was a real chance he could go to that ride. I didn't think he would be the top choice, but lo and behold, Daniel Hemric is getting the promotion from the Xfinity Series to the Cup Series with RCR. Which says to me that Richard Childress Racing is kind of just going into a rebuild mode here, Austin Dillon's young, he's won a couple big races in his career, but he's still relatively young and inexperienced. He's not a championship contender, he's hardly a playoff contender. Ryan Newman missed the playoffs this year, which was a little bit surprising, and I just don't see Daniel Hemric stepping into that ride and really making any big improvements right off the bat. I mean, he'll probably run 25th most of his rookie season. Maybe they'll get something going, maybe he'll run 20th, maybe the Chevys and the Camaros will start to, maybe these teams will get a bigger handle on them, a better handle on them next season. So that's what he can hope for, but I see RCR being kind of irrelevant. Now the other spot filled on this list is that 95 car, and this is another one I got wrong. I thought Daniel Suarez would end up going to the 95 because the reports for a long time have been saying that they're going to switch to Toyota, which they announced earlier today is true. Levine Family Racing is switching from Chevy to Toyota for the 2019 season, seemingly to take advantage of kind of an alliance, the same way Furniture Row Racing has the last few years, with Joe Gibbs Racing and with Toyota Racing Development. Immediately when those rumors came out months ago, I assumed Daniel Suarez had a good chance of going to that ride if he were to get booted from the 19, which seems likely. I thought that, Toyota would probably want to keep him in their system because while he hasn't, performed super well, since he's been in the 19 car, he is a, sponsoring and marketing machine. He has the unwavering support, it seems, from Eris, and being currently the only Mexican-born driver in the top level of NASCAR, has its advantages. So I figured Toyota or Joe Gibbs Racing or whoever would want to keep him in one of their type of cars, but it seems like now they're willing to let him walk because reports seem to say that Daniel Suarez could end up in that 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing. A Ford completely unrelated to Joe Gibbs Racing and Toyota, which would be shocking, but it seems like that could be the way things are headed. Gonna have to save that for a future video though, whenever something's actually announced. Needless to say, Matt DiBenedetto kind of came out of nowhere. I only heard about this rumor a couple of days ago, and it was reported then that Levine Family Racing had a press conference scheduled for today. I thought it would just be them switching to Toyota or something. I didn't expect a driver announcement, but sure enough, Matt DiBenedetto is going to be driving that 95 car for Levine Family Racing next season. A lot of people are excited about this because Matt DiBenedetto has been in poor equipment. He's been driving the 32 for Go Fast Racing. He's been a 30th place car. He's occasionally been making it look better than that, though, and that's why a lot of fans really like Matt DiBenedetto and are really hoping that this new change of scenery and possible improvement in equipment could be great moving forward for his career. At the end of the day, he's moving from a 30th place car to a 25th place car, so not a huge improvement there, but there is reason to be optimistic with this apparent switch to Toyota and likely alignment with Joe Gibbs Racing. We've seen how beneficial that's been to Martin Truex Jr. and Furniture Row the last few years. This could be bigger than we realize for DiBenedetto. He's only 27 years old. You know, I feel like we forget that he's still relatively young. I mean, he and Daniel Hemrick are about the same age. Daniel Suarez is about the same age as him. You know, Matt DiBenedetto's still a young guy. He's got many years ahead of himself. Sure, on paper, switching to a single-car, family-owned team like this may not be super flashy, but the Toyota partnership is something to keep an eye on. This car, not saying even if everything goes great, I'm not saying he's going to make the playoffs next year. I'm not going to say he's going to win any races next year, but he could get some top 10s. He could get some top 15s. He could make the playoffs. It's not impossible. It's just not likely, but it's not impossible, and that's not something I expected us to be saying about Matt DiBenedetto in 2018. So it's definitely exciting if you're a DiBenedetto fan. If you want to hop on the Matty D bandwagon, now's the time to do it. Now, I mentioned Daniel Suarez a minute ago. I do want to talk about him a little bit because I think his situation is extremely interesting. All the reports say that Daniel Suarez is going to get booted from Joe Gibbs Racing at the end of this season after only 2 years in that 19 car. And the fan reaction around that has been kind of mixed. A lot of fans say, hey, that's kind of unfair. You should probably have another year or two to get ready because when he jumped into that car last season, it was kind of last minute and he was definitely unprepared. Other fans seem to be saying good riddance. You know, he's driving a top car and he hasn't even made the playoffs in 2 years. You know, it's time to move on. I can see the merits in both sides. I agree with both sides to some extent, and that's what makes Daniel Suarez's situation very interesting. Like I mentioned a minute ago, Daniel Suarez currently is the only Mexican-born driver in NASCAR's top level, and with that comes a lot of, hype and a lot of excitement, and also a lot of pressure. I'll give you guys a brief history of Suarez's, top-level NASCAR career here. You remember 2016, he drove the 19 car for Joe Gibbs Racing in the Xfinity Series, won a couple races that year, and actually won the championship in 2016. Most people agree that he kind of lucked into that championship, probably had the third or fourth best car all year long, but still, he made it to the Final Four and was able to win at Homestead and win the championship. You can't take that away from him. Daniel Suarez was an Xfinity Series champion 2 years ago. He beat out Allgaier, Eric Jones, among others. So that's very notable. We forget about that. The very next season, when Carl Edwards, out of nowhere, announced he was leaving NASCAR, Daniel Suarez, with less than a month before Daytona, was told he was going to jump into that 19 car and race in the Cup Series full time. Daniel Suarez, I think most people agree, was not ready for that jump, and early in the season he struggled heavily. Towards the summer and even towards the second half of that season, he actually started to run better. Looked like a top 10 contender many weeks and looked like a driver who in 2018, this year, could have been a playoff contender. Fast forward to this season and it really hasn't gotten much better, unfortunately, for Suarez. I think expectations were high for him after it seemed like he made serious gains throughout 2017. 2018 came and they really didn't get off to a great start. A lot of up and down finishes, a lot of mistakes, and they really were never a playoff contender. Missed the playoffs this year. I think he's like 20th in points, which isn't going to cut it when you're driving for a top team like Joe Gibbs Racing. But Daniel Suarez's career has had a lot of interesting moments, especially when we look beyond the stats themselves. At the beginning of his rookie season, this is 2017, just a month into his rookie season, his crew chief, Dave Rogers, who had success with Kyle Busch in the past, he'd been with Edwards the year before and almost won a championship with him. Dave Rogers announced that he was stepping away. He was not going to be crew chiefing anymore. So literally a month into his rookie season, Daniel Suarez had to deal with a crew chief change. Scott Graves came over to crew chief that car. So he worked with the new crew chief all of last year and that same crew chief this year. Also remember last year, Suarez ran into an interesting moment when Subway, Eat Fresh, that Subway, suddenly announced mid-season that they were going to stop sponsoring that car. And it seemed to be because they were not happy with a segment Suarez had done on NASCAR and Fox where it showed him giving people Dunkin' Donuts donuts. So Subway backed out, and so all of a sudden Suarez was out a major partner, and it was, kind of out of nowhere. And speaking of Dave Rogers, who we haven't heard from for a year and a half, it was announced literally yesterday that Dave Rogers is coming back to crew chief the 19 car for the final 6 races this season. Out of nowhere, just all of a sudden, again, another crew chief change. Presumably that announcement has something to do maybe with getting ready for 2019 or something, but it's still weird. So needless to say, Daniel Suarez's transition into the Cup Series and his last 2 years have, not been very smooth, and most of it's been out of his control. The rumors say he could go to the 41 car for Stewart-Haas Racing if he's able to get the funding from Eris, which has been a long-time sponsor of his. If that happens, A lot of fans, I think, will be divided because a lot of people see that 41 car as one of the best cars in the garage. It's currently on the best team in the sport. It's, Kurt Busch drives that car. He's probably going to go to the round of 8, maybe even make it to Homestead. That's a great car. I'm sure a lot of fans are going to be skeptical because they're going to be like, oh, another driver just buying his way to good equipment when he hasn't earned it. And I encourage some of those people to hold off on those judgments. Because I think Daniel Suarez, he's a big marketing machine for NASCAR. NASCAR needs drivers from different backgrounds to attract new audiences. So I'm obviously hopeful that Daniel Suarez can do well in his career. And I think he is the driver that will win races in his career. He will be a playoff driver long term. He just needs to find the right situation. Some people like to compare him to Joey Logano. Remember, Joey Logano came into the Cup Series with Joe Gibbs Racing early in the first couple years in his career. Really wasn't that good. He made the transition to Penske in 2013 and immediately became a contender. And since then has always been a contender. I'm not sure you can compare the two that much because, Logano was really young when he came to Joe Gibbs Racing, like 18 when he started in the Cup Series. Suarez is quite a bit older, so it's hard to make that comparison perfectly, but they maybe have a point. I hope Suarez gets the 41 because I think that's the stable situation he deserves. Joe Gibbs Racing's all over the place with their driver lineups, from suspiciously having drivers like Edwards disappear to all of a sudden giving Matt Kenseth the boot, to now losing Noah Gragson, who's in the Toyota KBM JGR system. He's going to Junior Motorsports. Christopher Bell's unhappy in the Xfinity Series. He wants a Cup Series ride. The lineup at Joe Gibbs Racing is out of control right now. And I think it'll do Daniel Suarez a lot of good in his career and his future endeavors if he's able to get out of that situation and go to another super competitive car that has a more stable situation over there. So I'm hopeful Daniel Suarez gets that car. If he does indeed go to the 41, I think he makes the playoffs next year. I'm confident in saying that. Anyway, this episode's gone on longer than I meant for it to. Last thing I want to talk about briefly, yesterday Kasey Kahne made an unfortunate announcement. Kahne announced that he will not be returning to NASCAR this season, citing the recent dehydration issues he's had ever since the race at Darlington. He's missed the last several races, and he unfortunately announced Tuesday that he will be missing the rest of the races this season. Kasey Kahne already announced a couple months ago that he would be leaving NASCAR at the end of this season, and unfortunately it seems like his career has even been cut a little shorter than that. Kasey Kahne has won 18 times in his career at NASCAR's top level. He's raced for several top organizations. He's run in a lot of good cars. He's amassed quite the impressive fan base over the years. He's always been a fan favorite. It's sad to see him go, and it's unfortunate that he even was sent home kind of a few weeks before he wanted to. But I'm glad he's doing what's right for his health. I think at this point in his career, that's what's most important for him. He did say he's going to continue to run dirt racing cars. He's going to run his probably race in the World of Outlaws. He owns a team over there next season, so he did say he's going to do that. So Kasey Kahne's still going to be on a racetrack for the foreseeable future, just not a NASCAR racetrack. So give Kasey Kahne a round of applause for a successful career. Always sad to see a fan favorite go, but it's just the way the world is these days, the way the NASCAR world is. Anyway, y'all, that's going to do it for today's episode of Out of the Groove. Thank you all for watching. I ended up having a lot more to say about those topics than I thought I would. I hope you enjoyed, though. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow me on Instagram. You can become a Patreon supporter of the show, like these amazing sponsors right here. For $5 a month, you too can have your name featured on every episode and access to behind-the-scenes posts. So I appreciate you guys looking that out, and I appreciate the direct support. It means a ton to me. I'll have another episode up maybe at the end of this week. This week's pretty busy for me. I wanted to have another episode up on Friday, but this week I've been swamped this week with schoolwork and whatnot, so probably not going to happen. If you don't see me then, you'll see me after Talladega on Sunday, the wild card race, the one everyone's afraid of. Everyone, I guess, except Chase Elliott because he won, but yeah, Talladega's going to be crazy, so it should be fun. I'll see you guys then at the latest. Have a good weekend, everyone.